Quick rewind. So when you had initially taken the jump, obviously like there was the first 2 years grinding, whatever, like really putting in the work. How did you eliminate groupthink at the time for yourself? Because I think that's one thing a lot of my friends face is they're surrounded by a bucket of people who are kind of all thinking the same.
I end every one of my podcasts with the exact same quote. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And listen, I know that like you love your friends. I know that you probably love your family. And I'm not saying to stop spending time with friends or stop spending time with family, but you need to really audit your top 5. Like there's going to be people that you need to push to like number 7, 10, 15 of people you hang out with. Again, not cutting them off, but they just can't be as big of an influence in your life as they probably are right now, because you're going to be the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So like if Connor's one of your 5, like you've got a good start there. Now find 4 other people that you respect, that you admire, that are actually trying to carve out the life that you want to be carving out. Because if you have Connor, but then 4, people that are just like, all they're going to do is stay in their crappy job and complain about it every Friday night over beers, that's going to be your life, because Connor alone can't bring you up to where you need to be. You need to have your 5 people be rock solid. So that's where your focus needs to be. Surround yourself with 5 people. Get those 5 people. When your mother's whining at you about you not having a quote unquote professional job, just like smile and just ignore her to her face. I mean, when your father complains about this or that, just be like, in your head, be like, you just don't get it, Dad. I'm sorry. Like, you don't have to say it to him, but just like, you don't get it. Like when I was 32 launching my podcast, like my dad's like, what are you doing? And I was just like, in one ear, out the other. And now he's just like, my son's the best podcaster in the world. He comes to my keynote speeches and he's like the proudest dad. So like they will come around when they see that you've attained, what they're hoping for you, which is success and happiness. And that's what they all want. So don't like resent them for it. But man, during these first few years and you're getting your feet on the ground, like you've just got to zone all of them out, get your core 5 together and make it happen. Hi, this is John Lee Dumas, and this is my Golden Hour.
Boston, 2020, an era of chaos. But one podcast perseveres to unite the city. Ha ha ha! Yes, sir, baby boy, it's Big Bochi, and you're now tuned into the #1 podcast in Boston. Season 6 is booming.
Listen, I know you're the podcast god. And so today I was preparing. We were like so ready to run the episode and my Wi-Fi was down last minute.
Oh, no.
So I just QB scrambled all the way from Lexington, Mass to Cambridge, Mass. And I'm now surrounded by a litter box at my father's house.
Wow. Well, you know what? This will be a story for the ages, brother. We got a great 15 minutes ahead of us. Let's make the most of it.
Absolutely. I have my producers on the phone, Lexi B, Slugs, Riley. Say what's up.
Hello. Hey, John.
What's up, all you cool peeps?
Hey, so real quick, I want to talk a little bit about the PC connection. Where did you live when you were a senior?
So I'll give you my all 4 rundown real quick. I did St. Joe's, Cunningham, Mall Brown.
Cunningham as a sophomore.
As a sophomore, yeah. I became really good friends with my RA at St. Joe's. And so he was going into Cunningham and they had a room open because it's a 6-person. So me and my freshman year roommate got to live in Cunningham as a sophomore, which is sweet.
So you were like the swag sophomore that all the other sophomores wanted to like party at your apartment.
It was killer. It was great. But I will say I was ROTC, so I didn't get to go off campus at all. And I kind of do miss like not living on Eaton Street.
Oh, you were ROTC?
I know.
Man. So what was that? The three times a week, 5 a.m. wake up?
Oh, it was bad. It was bad.
And were you there's a big split here. Brendan, who's on the phone, who's my college roommate, he was not a fan of Ray, never got a meal plan. Were you a big fan of Ray? And was that the dining hall at the time?
It was the dining hall at the time. I can't say I was a big fan because I will be honest with you, it has become so much better since I graduated. What year did you guys get out?
2018.
I mean, the fact that you guys don't like Ray now just shows you like what spoiled brats the kids are these days, because Ray was so bad. It was just like a cafeteria with chairs and tables. Now I walked in there, there was like seating and pads, and you could have like different options. I mean, man, it was gourmet compared to when I was there.
Have you seen the new campus at all?
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
I'm surprised they haven't like hit you up for a keynote or like.
Oh, they have. I'm actually speaking next month to the business school. I'm giving like a presentation, and I've actually been back there a couple of times for different things. So I was actually featured in last month's, or not last month's, but they do a semi-annual magazine, and I was featured in the magazine, the most recent one.
They're like, this is the podcast god. He came out of our.
That's what they said actually in the
Hey man, well, thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, I actually right here have my PC 100 pin.
So what did you graduate?
Oh, 02. I'm old.
Dude, what are you, like 70?
I mean, I might as well be. I'm 40, but man, I'm looking at myself right now and I'm like, you look great. So I don't know.
You look like
something's working down here in Puerto Rico. I don't know.
Yeah. So when did you make the shift out to Puerto Rico? Is it for tax reasons?
4 years ago, because I was living in San Diego, which I loved, but I hated, making multiple millions of dollars a year tax wise. So I came to Puerto Rico and I went from 51% taxes to 4%.
Now, why does
this is my backyard, by the way. So that's another reason why I don't mind Puerto Rico.
That's pretty realistic. So why don't more millionaires do that? Like if you're making big
because they're not truly location independent. That's one of the problems. Like they actually have to be at a physical location somewhere in the States. So they're stuck. We are truly location independent. I mean, I've run my business, during my 90-day European trips to Prague, to, Budapest, Fiji. I mean, wherever I'm connecting to the internet, like when I go home to visit my parents, like you're at right now, like I'm flipping open my laptop and I'm getting work done.
Now, are you one of those entrepreneurs who like has to kind of be out and talk to people to shake and move? Or are you someone who can kind of lock in at the crib and get a bunch of work done?
I lock in at the crib, get a bunch of work done. This quarantine, like I'm disappointed, obviously, for a lot of reasons, and I'm saddened by it for a lot of reasons. I know it's just really disturbing, and it's messing a lot of people's lives up. But I'll say for my business, like it really hasn't impacted it much at all. In fact, in some ways, it's been an eye-opener for a lot of people about why they need to have more of a location independent business, why they need to have a podcast and not rely on going to places to speak in person, because now they can't. But guess what? We can do this right here, and you're at your home or your parents' home, and I'm here in my home, and like we're able to have this kind of amazing conversation. And I've got 20 of these calls today. Like I'm able to do 20 of these. If like, I was to go to a conference later, today or this weekend, like that would like consume 3 or 4 days for just like one event, where now I can do essentially 20 small events, and some of them are large events because I'm on some, really big podcasts and some really big like master webinars that, could be in front of 300, 500, 1,000 people.
Now, before we move on, can you just give a quick synopsis of who you are and what you do for anyone who doesn't know?
So my name is John Lee Dumas. I am a 2002 Providence graduate, which makes me very old in the eyes of Connor. I'm actually just turned 40 years old, and it's mind-blowing. But believe me, my friends, you are going to blink and you'll be as old as me. So enjoy it because it goes by fast. And back in 2012, so that was even before you enrolled at Providence, I launched Entrepreneurs on Fire as a daily podcast, interviewing the world's most successful entrepreneurs. It was the best daily podcast interviewing entrepreneurs the day I launched it. It was also the worst. It was the only daily podcast interviewing entrepreneurs, which is why I was able to turn it into a success, because I wasn't good. The show wasn't good. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was the only game in town. And that's why I was able to get initial traction, build up my credibility, hone my skills by doing it every single day. Like, do you think Ed Cooley lets the PC Fire basketball team practice once a week? No. So why do people think they can podcast once a week and get good at it? You can't. You got to put in the reps. So I did 2,000 episodes in 2,000 days. Like I'm like David Duke on the Providence College basketball team. and I'm working on my craft every single day of the week. And I get a little bit better every single time, just like a little bit better. And over the past 8 years, I've launched over 2,600 episodes, turned Entrepreneurs on Fire into a business that now 7 years running has not just grossed, but netted multiple millions of dollars per year. Moved down to my tax haven oasis of Puerto Rico 4 years ago. And now I get to keep all the money I make and write big, alumni checks to Providence College.
Well, question. So when you had started the show, I mean, again, when we were planning for the episodes, like, this dude's been on so many podcasts. I can kind of like at least have a different angle. But when you had started, you were in your car and you realized you were out of podcasts. You were working in corporate finance where specifically?
John Hancock, Boston.
So was it like really stifling for you at the time? Because now you realize like, you're really a grinder. You're really that type of dude who's like OCD, putting to work like crazy. Did you just kind of always feel like restless when you were working in that type of environment?
So there was like a 6-month period when I was learning the craft of like what variable annuities were and what corporate finance was, where I was actually really enjoying it. I was busy for most of the day. I was meeting people that were working, in cubicles next to me. I had this, office where I had this unbelievable view of Boston. Being a Providence College graduate, like most of my friends, like moved up to Boston afterwards. And so they were in the city. So it's kind of like, like a little adult college, so to speak, like in Boston.
Oh, man, that's what Southie is. It's PC North.
Yeah, good point. I mean, Southie is PC North, and I think you might know this, maybe not, but I actually, with my college roommate, bought a condo on East Broadway, and East Broadway Street. And so we owned that place for like 5 years. It was awesome. It was a 3-bedroom. It had a roof deck over like with the city skyline, and it was so much fun. But after 6 months, I started getting that stifling feeling that you were talking about, where I was like, getting tired of putting on a suit and commuting in every single day, picking up the phone calls and smiling and dialing. And essentially what it came down to was working really, really hard, making other people money. Because I was going to get that same essentially paycheck every month. Like I might get a little bit more and a little bit less based on commission. But, for the most part, I'm making like the range of like 60 to 80,000 a year. Like that wasn't going to change if I crushed it or if I was, horrible. And I realized that I was kind of like stuck in that little kind of block right there. And that's when I really started kind of going downhill as, frankly, an employee for John Hancock. In my last 6 months, my numbers went down, my stat, like the first 6 months, I was like the best. Like I was the most calls, the most talk time, the most sales. The last 6 months are like, dude, what's up? I'm just like, I just lost my motivation. Like it was fun for a minute, but now like I'm tired of making other people money. Like I want to make myself money. And like, that's where I found I can work so hard for myself, but I turn really lazy really quick when I'm working for somebody else. It's who I am.
I feel you, man. At what point did you know you kind of had a motor though, growing up? You're like, you know what, I might have something going on in my mind that's a little bit different than the kids I'm going to school with.
It really wasn't like that. I wish I could say that it was. I mean, I was just a floater. I was just floating by. I was literally a 3.04 GPA at Providence. So like but man, like I really had to work hard to get up to that. Like my freshman year was terrible. And like, I really had to work my butt off to just get to that flat 3 GPA, which is very average. And, we got paid $75 a week to be in ROTC. And like, that was more than enough money for me. So I never like went and got other jobs or hustled or tried to make more money. Like I just lived off of that $75 a week, which is plenty of money for a college student, as I'm sure you know, and especially when
that is not enough now. $75, that's all you had
per week, man. Come on. I take $20 to Louis, like for Friday night, like good there. I take $5 to Golden Crust the following day to kind of like have a hangover pizza. Like I was good to go with $75 a week.
More liking the buff chick pizza back then?
Oh, it was so good. It was the best. I'd have it every day, just dipping it in blue cheese and just going to town.
Calorie blaster. Hey, did you like Eastside Pockets on Thayer?
Oh, loved it. But getting to Thayer was kind of a bummer. They didn't really have like meal delivery back in the day, so it wasn't like super convenient for us to get over there because a lot of us didn't even have cars. So I think if I was to go back now, like with all the food delivery, like I would just sit back and like order that place every single day, all day. But at the end of the day, like I was just looking to have fun, go out, chat with girls, do the thing. And it wasn't really until, kind of my mid to late 20s where I started like really failing at a lot of things. Like, I just like dropped, quit corporate finance, dropped out of law school, wasn't successful in real estate, that I realized, you know what, I'm now like getting into my 30s and I'm either going to be like skimping, quote unquote, floating by the rest of my life, or I'm just going to buckle down, crush it, and own my life where like I can do whatever I want. And I chose the latter, and I'm glad I did, but it wasn't easy. I put a lot of work in, and it's really allowed me to kind of, build this financial war chest where, now I can travel the world. I can work, from my home here in Puerto Rico, and I can have great conversations with people like you.
You're a boss, man. A lot of my friends right now they're reaching an inflex point because you leave school. I didn't. I started Golden Deer Productions right at school, and then right out of school, and I kept it going. And it's a grind, man. Like, it's just no joke, But a lot of my friends are reaching the point, they're 2 years out, 3 years out, and they're like, dude, what have I done the last 2-3 years? I mean, you're a super motivational dude, and like you're totally career focused. Do you have any thoughts on like, how someone can make a pivot at this point?
Well, I hope that people are taking some motivation for the fact that like, I can say that like what happened to my last 10 years, when I graduated college, like from 22 to 32, I mean, obviously I spent 4 years as an officer in the Army. So I have no regrets there. Like I did my time in the service and I'm proud of that, et cetera, et cetera. But from 26 to 32, like those are what I call my lost years, my struggle years. So, I mean, like for people that are just 2 or 3 years out, like you're still kind of in this mode of like, what, like what works, let's try this, let's test that. And I would just recommend people keep doing that. I mean, I think the biggest mistake you can make right now is just saying, you know what, like I've got bills to pay, I've got college debt, I've got this, I've got that. Like, I just need to stay in this job that I hate and just, just barely scrape by and keep doing it. It's like, now's the time when like you probably don't have kids, you probably don't have a big mortgage, you probably don't have a lot of the the craziness that like people seem to tack onto their lives as they get into their later 20s, early 30s, et cetera, and beyond. Now's the time, man. Like, get out there. I wish I had your attitude and I took your action when I was 18, 20, 22 years old. Again, I look at my life and I said, I would have just got where I'm at a lot faster. So, I mean, you're on the right path. And I think anybody who's listening to this that's kind of looking and saying, I've had a lost couple of years, like look at that and say, you know what, there's lessons to be learned. I've learned what I don't like doing. I've learned how I don't want to live my life. Now let me taste this. Let me try that. Let me sample this. And let me expect to fail. Like, there's no problem thinking you're going to fail or expecting to fail because you can learn so much from that. I mean, I fail all the time and I'm making millions of dollars a year, but I'm failing, crushing it. Failing, hitting a single.
Hashtag Gary Vaynerchuk crushing it.
Boom. Which, by the way, chapter 14, read it. He featured me.
Good for you. What was getting that call like?
It was awesome. I mean, because listen, back in 2008, what was I, like 25 years old? I read that book, Crush It, his first book, and I loved it. And then, I was so excited to get him as a guest on my show, like back in 2012. And he wasn't even that huge back then. Like, he's since blown up, next level. But back then he was a big deal, but now he's a massive deal. And having him on the show was awesome. And then like 4 years after that, in 2016 or so, when I heard he was coming out with Crushing It, I'm like, that's a brilliant idea. Then I heard he was going to feature like 20 entrepreneurs. And I heard he's going to feature like Lewis House and Pat Flynn. And then like and then my phone rang and I was like, hello, New York number? And they're like, yes, Gary wants to feature you in his book. And I'm like, done. And it was amazing.
quick rewind. So when you had initially taken the jump, obviously like there was the first 2 years grinding, whatever, like really putting in the work. How did you eliminate groupthink at the time for yourself? Because I think that's one thing a lot of my friends face is they're surrounded by a bucket of people who are kind of all thinking the same.
I end every one of my podcasts with the exact same quote. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And listen, I know that like you love your friends. I know that you probably love your family. And I'm not saying to stop spending time with friends or stop spending time with family, but you need to really audit your top 5. Like there's going to be people that you need to push to like number 7, 10, 15 of people you hang out with. Again, not cutting them off, but they just can't be as big of an influence in your life as they probably are right now, because you're going to be the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So like if Connor's one of your 5, like you've got a good start there. Now find 4 other people that you respect, that you admire, that are actually trying to carve out the life that you want to be carving out. Because if you have Connor, but then 4, people that are just like, all they're going to do is stay in their crappy job and complain about it every Friday night over beers, that's going to be your life, because Connor alone can't bring you up to where you need to be. You need to have your 5 people be rock solid. So that's where your focus needs to be. Surround yourself with 5 people, get those 5 people. When your mother's whining at you about you not having a quote unquote professional job, just like smile and just ignore her to her face. I mean, when your father complains about this or that, just be like, in your head, be like, you just don't get it, Dad. I'm sorry. Like, don't have to say it to him, but just like, you don't get it. Like when I was 32 launching my podcast, like my dad's like, what are you doing? And I was just like, in one ear, out the other. And now he's just like, my son's the best podcaster in the world. He comes to my keynote speeches and he's like the proudest dad. So like they will come around when they see that you've attained, what they're hoping for you, which is success and happiness. And that's what they all want. So don't like resent them for it. But man, during these first few years and you're getting your feet on the ground, like you've just got to zone all of them out, get your core 5 together and make it happen.
Easier said than done, though, for sure.
So much easier said than done. I mean, I've had to have some really tough conversations with people where I'm just like, John, we don't like talk, or we're not like, why aren't you coming out for beers with us like on Thursday nights anymore? I'm just like, I've got other stuff I'm doing, guys.
At what point did you make the shift from just like podcast grinder, and then like when was there an inkling in your mind? You're like, I kind of want to try my hand at motivational speaking.
It was really kind of where I got to a point when other people identified that I was ready, because I didn't feel like I was ready still. Like I still kind of felt like an imposter, like I wasn't good enough. I knew that I was getting a little bit better, but I still was, aware that I wasn't good. And they reached out and said, John, like you're not that good, but you're good enough to like start. And like, here's an opportunity for you to get out and to speak, in front of 45 people at this smaller event. And I did, and I wasn't good. I can go back and remember, how I was that day, and, it's things that I just would never do now. Now I've spoken in front of, 3,500 people, as the opening keynote for a massive conference. And, but I didn't start there. I started with the small steps, and that's kind of the process that I went. But my advice on that would be, looking back, you just need to start as soon as possible.
I know, but I think there's a certain desire for people who want to motivational speak. They think that, how do you just maintain positivity at all times? Like you're a normal dude. I'm a normal dude. You have bad days where you're like, yo, this is whack.
So listen, I'm a very normal dude. And like a lot of people, they see like you on the mic and, you've got good energy and you're positive and you're talking about good, motivational things. I'm the same way. Like I'm high energy, like I bring it. But dude, when we turn this microphone off, like I'm going to sit down in my chair. I'm going to kick my feet up. I'm going to watch 15 minutes of Game of Thrones before, the next interview comes up. And I'm just a normal guy. Like Gary Vaynerchuk, like he's super high energy, but like, believe me, he has his times where he's just like, leave me the F alone because I don't want to talk to anybody. Like everybody at the end of the day is a human being. So like when you're seeing that like one Instagram picture or that 15-second, TikTok video or this or that, like you're just seeing people's, perfectly cultivated image. Like at the end of the day, they're still human. You're still human. Just recognize that, hey, they're imperfect. I'm imperfect. what did they do that I didn't do? They actually started. They actually did something.
Now we got about 6 minutes, so I'm gonna try to do the GDP value bombs.
No, you got me until 15 past. We got another 10 minutes.
Well, let's go. I'm having a great time. Are you, man?
Me too. Yeah, you double booked me. I must have gave you the PC hookup because that doesn't happen. But I just checked my schedule. You got me till 15 minutes past. So let's make the most of it.
PC discount, baby.
Holla.
So how does your show work monetarily? Because I know someone who's been on your show. They paid the big bucks to be a guest. They loved it. I actually texted the guy. His name is Greg O'Brien. He's a CPA. He ran an episode with you. I'm sure you've run a million. But he was like, yeah, John just runs like a wicked tight ship. How do you evaluate like, hey, man, listen, if you come on our show, trust me, it's worth this much?
Yeah. So obviously I did not start charging what I now call appearance fees day one because I didn't have the ability to do so. I didn't have the audience. I didn't have the potential return on investment for my guests that were coming on. And, frankly, I was just I want to go as far as begging, but I mean, like I had to really work hard as a daily podcast, needing 30 episodes every single month. I had to work hard to really keep my pipeline full. So, I was really putting in the work. And when people would say yes, I was just grateful for it. But then as the show got bigger and as people started seeing it ranked, in the top of business podcasts, and they started looking at our income reports where we share our numbers and the fact that we're getting over 1 million listens every single month of the podcast. And, I'm keynoting conferences and, we're launching courses and they're just kind of seeing this, really big success that our business overall is having. That's when I kind of reached this tipping point where now all of a sudden I was getting, 5 inquiries a week to be on the show. And then it was 10 and then it was 20. And this was over years. But then I reached a tipping point where I was getting more people inquiring about being on the show than I even had spots for. And that was a cool thing. So now I'm just like, wow, now I've actually, just like, Providence College has to vet people to, accept them to the school. They get like 10,000 applications for 1,000 spots. I was getting like 50, inquiries for 30 spots. And I was like, okay, I can actually, I have to say no to some people now. And I can really try to make sure that I'm bringing the best people on. And then over more time, that number has grown to where now we get anywhere from 400 to 500 applications a month to be on Entrepreneurs on Fire. And we've moved to a 3 times per week show. So that's for 12 spots. I have a full-time virtual assistant whose sole job it is to converse with and kind of filter through all these applications just to bring me the creme de la creme.
Was it weird for you charging the first time?
I didn't know what to expect. I was like, you know what? This is going to be weird because I'll tell you guys like something, because it was a really good question that like I really haven't brought up on many past interviews because it just never has come up. But back pre-launch of Entrepreneurs on Fire, I had a mentor, Jamie Masters. She's a very successful podcast host. And she said, how are you going to make money with your podcast? Like that was just her trying to start a conversation with me and us to identify different ways to monetize. And I said, well, I feel like when my show gets popular enough that like people will pay to come on because it's going to give them massive exposure and, they're going to get a lot of book sales and course sales and they're going to get return on their investment. And she's like, John, people aren't going to pay to be on a podcast. Like that's just not how it's done. I was like, oh, okay. And you know what? She was right. People are going to pay to be on just any podcast. But I got to the point years and years later, thousands of episodes in, where I realized that, you know what, the return on investment to the show is huge. I'm getting emails from past guests talking about, how they made $50,000 on course sales the day their episode went live. I literally have a testimonial on my guest application page where one of my guests directly attributes over $1 million in sales since the podcast is launched. So, I mean, like there's just some situations where you can really hit it out of the park. And so the first time I push that send button on the guest appearance fee, I was like, this is weird, but I feel like this is a step I need to take. I need to at least test these waters. And hey, if I get horrible feedback and nobody's willing to do it, then I'll just readjust. Like I can do that. I'm getting enough people applying on a monthly basis. And I remember the guy wrote back, he was like, let's do it. And boom, payment came in. And I was like, boom. And now like, I've just been trying to be like, okay, like what's the right price point? Because, you know, it's all about supply and demand. And I don't want to like, you know, have this ridiculous number that I'm going to have great guests saying no to just because it's not, you know, this reasonable, fair price. But we've settled on $3,500 per episode. And so if you know, do the math, I mean, that's over $10,000 per week just from guests, not to mention we have sponsorships, you know, we have books and courses and affiliate revenue. So, you know, it's a huge revenue stream for us for sure. Just last month, we had 16 people pay the appearance fee because, you know, we had to book a couple extra people for various things. And so it's real money coming in. It was like $60,000. And it, you know, is something that I will share, since we have the time to talk about it real quick, has been one of the best decisions that I've made for Entrepreneurs on Fire because, and this is key, when people pay, they pay attention. And so when somebody now pays $3,500, let me tell you a couple of things. That person shows up on time. That person shows up ready to rock it. That person shows up prepared for the interview. That person delivers massive value on that interview. That person has an amazing free call to action now because they spent $3,500 up front. They want to get their investment and then some on the back end. So they have these great giveaways, these great calls to action. Like a killer example is we have guests that give away 15 to 30 minute free consultation calls for my listeners because they know that they're going to be able to make that up on the back end and it's going to be a great call to action for them. So it's improved almost every facet of Entrepreneurs on Fire because now when people are actually coming on my show, like they have skin in the game. Like this didn't happen often in the past, but every now and then I'd get somebody on the show and they'd be like, hey, give me a quick update. Like, what's this about? Like my secretary booked this. I don't really know. I've never heard of the show and da-da-da-da-da. And that's fine. Like that they didn't hear about the show before, but they just had this nonchalant attitude. And again, it was a small percentage, but it happens. That never happens anymore because
You were pissed.
I'm not gonna lie. I was pissed. I was like, do you effing know how many people are gonna listen to the show? I'm like, here you are, some dude who's probably never spoken to 50 people live before, and you're just, you know, gonna come on this show and have hundreds of thousands of earballs. And you're just, you know, gonna wing it.
You remember my name too. I know you remember him by name.
I've got a list, and they'll never be back on the show again. That I promise.
Yeah, we got like 3 minutes. So I'm gonna hit him real quick. Riley, why don't you get your question off real quick?
Hello, I'm Riley. My question is, you've obviously done a ton of interviews and you've done a ton of podcasts. So what's a question you've never been asked that you've always wanted to be asked?
A question that I've never been asked is if I could live anywhere in the world while running my business, where would I live? I've never been asked that question.
So what's the answer?
So I'm sure my answer will change over the years, but right now I just have this really strong desire to live for an extended period of time and run my business in Singapore. I've never been, but I've talked to many people who I'm close friends with that love Singapore, say it's so super business friendly, it's clean, it's got a lot of stuff going on for it. So again, I've never been, but like that to me is my dream, to like move to Singapore for a year, run the business there, and just kind of enjoy a completely different culture. Because, you know, that's one thing that I feel like a lot of us are missing, is just like throwing ourselves into completely different cultures and seeing how we react, not for like a week vacation, but for like a year.
All right, real quick. So we have one ending bid on the show. It's called GDP sales mode. I give you the floor for 40 seconds. I'm going to pull up my phone, hit the timer. You can pitch whatever you want to pitch for 40 seconds. And I'm going to count down from 5. And you hit, listen, man, you're the master salesman, so you better come through with some fire.
Sure. Tell me when.
4, 3, 2, 1, sales mode, go.
If you are not where you want to be in life right now, there's one simple reason. You don't know how to set and accomplish one goal in a set time frame. Lucky for you, I have the solution, the Freedom Journal. It's all about you setting and accomplishing your number one goal in 100 days. We start off with you setting a SMART goal that's specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time bound. And then over 100 days, I take you through the process of accomplishing your number one goal with 10-day sprints, 25-day quarterly reviews. By the end of those 100 days, you will accomplish your number one goal, period.
Done. Got it. Okay, cool. Also, this is how we start and end the show. You say, hi, my name is blank, your name, and this is my golden hour. Directly after, no break, hi, your name, and that was my golden hour.
Hi, this is John Lee Dumas, and this is my golden hour.
Bang.
Hi, this is John Lee Dumas, and this was my golden hour.
It's that was John.
Oh, hi, this is John Lee Dumas, and that was my golden hour.
Well executed, man. Hey, thank you so much for doing this for us.
It was a blast. Go Friars, and keep up the heat, my man.
All right. Hey, I'm not going to ask you your address on air, but I got a new sweatshirt. I want to ship it down to you.
I will send you a message right now on Zoom.
You're my guy, man. Hey, thank you so much for doing this.
Actually, I'll send it on Skype because I got you pulled up right there.
All right, cool. You're the GOAT, bro. Thank you.
Present